Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Louise. It is always just a pleasure to be in Louise's presence because I think she's such an amazing mentor and role model and superwoman that has made South Africa proud. So I'm just happy to be with you. And I just am looking forward to sharing some of my journey with those who are joining us so that hopefully everybody can take something away and learn and grow from, you know, my story.
Thank you. And I want to just, because we are, it looks like we're a slightly smaller group than what we had thought, really want to encourage you to switch your videos on, raise your hand, your electronic hand. If your video's on, then we can see it. If you raise your physical hand and you want to contribute to the conversation or you want to stop us midway, I see people are joining us as we go. So thank you for those of you who have already shared where you're dialing in from and what your interest is. We're going to dive straight into this conversation. And the conversation is starting with the lessons that Kevin has learned and is now keen to share from his very interesting journey. So again, I'm going to keep reminding you that this is a great book if you want to read it and share it with your friends. It's called Can Do. So maybe, Kevin, let's start with that. Why did you call this book Can Do? Now, I can see what it says on the back of this book, but the other people can't. So tell us, what does the back of this book say about the name? Why did you choose that name for your memoir?
Well, it was an interesting time to choose a title because that's always the most difficult. You know what you want to tell people, you know what you want to put in your story, but the title of the book has to draw people. And it took me back to my grandfather, who his philosophy was always never say die, get up and try. Whenever you saw him, hello, Grandpa, how are you today? All good, never say die, get up and try, you know. And from an early age, everything that I experienced was you cannot do this. This is impossible. No, you can't. So it was very much trying to look around the can't, but then we decided to rather focus on the can do. You can do anything in life that you want to. What I like to, when people buy the book in the front, I like to write, whatever you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. So all the cans were coming through. We even thought of calling the book Canning the Can't. That was one of the ideas, and then we sort of played around with it. But we finally settled on, you can do it. You know, I think the most important is to believe in oneself, and then you can do anything. So yeah, that's where it eventually evolved to can do, making the impossible possible. Because I think all throughout my life, you know, people said, oh, that's impossible. You'll never do this. You know, you'll never make something with a father like you've got. You'll never, you know, No, what's the lesson from that? You can. Don't blame your past. Learn from that. And I go into more than that in the book in terms of how wise my mother was, in terms of giving us good male role models. So I share a lot about the importance of everybody having a role model and a mentor to learn from. So that's it. Long answer to a title.
So I was just thinking about, I'm trying to remember the name of this guy now. My brain's not working this morning. I've recently been rereading some of his books, and a very well-known writer whose name will come to me in a minute. But one of the things that he talked about is the fact that he knows that he has achieved what he's achieved in life because of the people he has had the opportunity to connect with. Now, your book is full of stories of amazing people, but just for those of you who don't have the book in front of you, the foreword is written by our dear friend Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And then on the back of the book, there are some names that I'm sure you will all recognize. Ahmed Kathrada, Raymond Ackerman, Yvonne Shaka, Paul Kravitz, who's the chairman of Cape Union Mart, and then Andrew Jennings, who was the past CEO from Woolworths South Africa. And the whole book is full of stories of really interesting people. So Kevin, do you want to start us off with a little bit around the role that these people have played in your life? Because you didn't get to where you are today by yourself, did you?
Oh my word, I lost the last part. It says my internet connection is unstable. Sorry. I presume we were talking, I heard you, you said Philip Kraft, you named some of the people, and then?
No, and then I said, you didn't get to where you are today by yourself. You were surrounded, and you've been walking on the shoulders of many people. You've been carried on the shoulders by many people. So just talk about the role of people. And when I read the book, I was touched by your bravery and your courage to ask people like Raymond Ackerman and Philip Kravitz to be your mentors. So maybe also the role of mentors and these key people in your life.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, I've always believed that's so important, never to be scared to go and ask somebody, oh, I'd like to learn from you. You know, from when I started in banking, I started right at the bottom. I mean, back in 1981, it was licking envelopes. We were still posting statements out. But from that stage on, I would always look at somebody that was better than me or more senior that I could just learn from and ask. And so it started way back then. And throughout my banking career, it was really a case of every boss I had, I learned something from. I had difficult bosses, I had easier bosses, but I learned something from them and they taught me something. And then arriving in Cape Town, when I left Johannesburg, one of my bosses said to me, Kevin, the best thing you can do is network effectively. Meet people that you will grow and learn from, because so many people don't network effectively. They'll go to an event and they'll just maybe take a business card and never follow up. But I just believe very strongly you've got to follow up on these relationships, because you're so right. It was only arriving in Cape Town that I learned of the word Ubuntu. And you'll see I share one of the chapters is really how can you practically apply Ubuntu. And for me, one of the things about Ubuntu is build strong relationships, respect people of other color, culture, religion, and language. Because I've learned from so many Jewish people, often people just assume I'm Jewish and they say I look Jewish and I sound Jewish. But you know, I just believe we open ourselves up when we learn about other people's culture, religion, language, business philosophy. So I definitely, everything I've achieved in life, I as a Christian, with wonderful Jewish friends, wonderful Muslim friends, Hindu friends, even atheists. You know, I've just achieved everything through others, which is what Ubuntu is. I am because we are. We are because of others. And I really do attribute to that. And that's why I like this word Ubuntu, because it takes away any arrogance. You know, when you believe in Ubuntu that we are because of others, then you're not arrogant about what you've achieved. You know, you attribute everything to what, as you say, walking on the shoulders of giants. So, and that goes to male and female. I mean, some of them I've learned from is a woman called Helen Lieberman. I do touch on her in the book. I mean, that's a remarkable woman. We are so blessed with powerful women in this country that we can learn from, and that I've learned from, because I find that a lot of us men are intimidated by good women, which we need to change that. I mean, apart from changing, you know, the whole abuse and violence, that we have to stand up as men and be real men. We really need to respect. I mean, God made man and woman differently for a reason. We need each other. So I found all through my career, a lot of men would feel intimidated, whereas I rather surrounded myself with good people. When I appointed people my managers in banking, you know, whether I was in Johannesburg as HR, admin, and finance director, I had to appoint people. When I came down as sales and service director to Cape Town, I had to appoint managers to my branches, and, you know, branch managers, relationship managers, service managers. I made sure I chose people who were sometimes better than me, who would make me successful. So everything I've achieved is through role models, mentors, but also my team, you know, getting the best out of them, getting them to believe in themselves and believe in myself that I can be a good leader. So, yeah, thank you.
So I want to say to those of you who are on the call, I really want to encourage you, if you are able to, it's so nice to see Murray and Mokhatua and Kevin and Elsa and Linda's faces. So if you are able to switch your video on, it just kind of gives us a sense of being connected as human beings rather than these black boxes on a screen.
Yeah.
But if you were in Cape Town, and those of you who live in Cape Town, I'm sure many of you have had the opportunity to attend an Ubuntu breakfast. And these are amazingly high energy, I mean, in the time that when I had a little bit more time and I could attend those things, I always found it amazingly energizing to go to an Ubuntu breakfast. And one of the reasons for the Ubuntu, why it was so energizing, is it was a bit noisy. It was like engaging. And so I really want to encourage us to see whether we can create some of that today. And one way to do that is to, you know, when Kevin was saying that we need more men who can deal with strong women, I wanted to there was a very big part of me wanted to say, amen, brother, but I didn't. I held back. But I want to encourage you that if Kevin says anything that you either agree with or don't agree with or want to support or whatever, just post a thought on the chat, because it just helps us to give a little bit more of a sense of community. And then I'm going to also keep my eyes on the list of participants. So if anybody wants to say something or contribute something, you can just put your hand up or unmute yourself, and then we're going to kind of open the conversation. So we're talking about Kevin's book, Can Do, which is a story about a life, and a very interesting life, and a life that started as so Kevin, you couldn't go to university. Your parents couldn't afford to send you to university, so you started work at FNB. And I think I can't remember, but I think you said you earned 354 Rand a month or something. It was like not a very big salary.
That's it.
Was it? Am I right? Was that the number? And then you're a beautiful example of someone who has worked himself up from that, you know, most menial of tasks to become finally the provincial, was it the provincial director or the provincial leader of FNB in the Western Cape? Talk to us a little bit about how many years did that take you, and what were your if you had to kind of share with us, what were your 2 or 3 big takeaways from that part of your journey? The before Amy Beale Foundation part of your life.
I think the first one I learned early on is you can't pray and sit back and wait. You know, too many people pray and say, I've handed it over to God, which I do, and I pray a lot. Not enough, I don't think, and then they sit back and wait. No, you've got to get out there, and then God opens the doors, he closes the doors. And I found that so true throughout my life, you know, and hard work is to me what really paid off. And then attitude. I think throughout my banking career, one of the, you know, when I would have my performance appraisal, I would be promoted, you know, one of the things I was told was, we like your attitude. It's a positive attitude. We too often focus on the negatives. You know, when you meet people, the world's falling apart. And I say, no, you know, when you get up in the morning, you know, good morning, what am I going to go and do today? You know, we have to, and I understand we all have challenges. We can't always be this bubbly person, but we've got to find ways to keep ourselves positive, to get back on track when we're not, so that our attitude is positive. I've met too many people who are always looking for they're criticizing something, or they're complaining about this in their work and that in their work. And I always rather really focused on what needs to be done, and brought other people along with me. So I think that was a big one. And then also never just accepting the norm. I remember when I was moved from Durban to Johannesburg. That was in the early 1991. And I was made the industrial relations manager for the group. And everyone said, oh my word, you're going to never work with your boss, who was the head of industrial relations and corporate HR. He's such a difficult, autocratic man. And from day one, I found ways to just challenge him in a positive way. You know, you don't want to be challenging somebody and be seen to be doing it in the wrong way. And by the end of the time, he had changed. He was more, you know, open-minded and things. So it's also just find ways to challenge the norm and not just accept it. I remember one of my branch managers had a really tough time when I'd moved to Cape Town, and she was being really unfairly hounded by somebody, which was really a bit of an unfair labor practice, and everybody was too scared to challenge the senior person of what she was doing. And I said to my boss, no, I'm going to phone, and I don't even mind saying who it is. It was Wendy Lucas Bull, who was the senior person, but there was another one, Leonie van Tonde, and everyone said, you can't phone Wendy, my goodness, the next thing you'll be fired. I said, but I can't stand back and just see injustice. And I phoned Wendy, and she was so appreciative that I raised the matter. So I think it's never be scared. I mean, another example is when
Kevin, just for everybody else's benefit, Wendy at the time, was she the chairman of the bank? Was she the CEO?
Yes, she was chairman of the retail bank.
So I
think she's chair of ABSA at the moment. Yeah.
She is.
And I mean, another one is when I moved to Cape Town as sales. You can hear me? When I moved to Cape Town as sales and service director, it was a wonderful opportunity. And all the people in Joburg, oh, you're never going to turn Cape Town around. We were the worst performing. You're never going to turn Cape Town around. It's impossible. And in 4 years, we turned it around. But how did we turn it around? It was through the people. Bringing the people along, that they became passionate about what we wanted to achieve, creating a philosophy of excellence, appreciating others. I share in the book about Raymond Ackerman's philosophy of the 4 legs of the table, which I believe so much in. And we don't have time to go into it, but one of those 4 legs is about your staff, treating your staff well. And it wasn't about paying them lots of money. It was just showing them little things of appreciation. Even when I would visit my branches, I would make sure I would remember even the teller or the cleaner's name. And people were like, oh my word, no boss from head office has ever called us by name when they come here, And it's those little things that can change dramatically. I called all my managers together one day and I said, how many of our white and colored staff have ever been into a black township? And it was nil. This was 2005. I said, come on, let's go in. And I got so much resistance, just from, and what I found, it was actually not racism. People were in a comfort zone. They'd never ventured out to go to and meet black people in a township. And once I forced them out, there's a much longer story to it. I share some interesting and funny stories from some of my staff who I'm still in touch with today, who resisted. But after that, the whole mindset of our region changed, because before a black messenger would come in to the teller, and the teller wouldn't even greet them. They just stamp it like the post office, and not even after they'd started opening themselves up, they would now greet the messenger coming in, and it just created a whole different mindset. And that's really some of the things that took us to turn us around from worst performing to top performing. I mean, another one was, all my branches, some of them were historical buildings, and the rule was you can't have signage up. It's a historic building. I said, well, we got to challenge this. We got to go to the authorities, because otherwise we'll just give the building back and it'll become a, dormant, or vagrants living there. And we just had to push quietly and, get them to come around to our way of thinking. So again, it's just not holding back and just believing in yourself that you can do something and it'll happen.
So in the book, there are many comments from people about you as an individual, and the kind of common theme, which I think, when we read our own stories, we may not be able to see it so clearly, but for me, from an outsider perspective, the common theme was really around how you just infectious, your energy and enthusiasm and sense of possibility and what's possible is infectious. So how do you maintain that, Kevin? Because I mean, you and I share a bit of a past history around, we've both been leading not-for-profit organizations and no funding, and all of the challenges that go with that, and many other challenges. And somehow you have just been able to just stay infectiously positive and enthusiastic. How has that happened? How has that been possible? What do you do? What's your magic sauce? Which, is it a supplement that you take in the mornings, or is it, what is the magic sauce?
It's funny you say it's a supplement, because sometimes people say, are you on a drug? What drug do you take? Or what, that you always like this. I mean, my friend Glenn Hennick, who's the owner of Crazy Stores, and I mean, Crazy Stores now like 700 stores all over. He often says, "Cheapers, Kevin, when I'm with you, I get like scared, because you just, I have to be positive with you." I think Louise, it's firstly my firm belief in God, and that I want to be a servant on earth. I do believe God, whether you're Christian, Jew, Muslim, God puts us on earth for a reason. And so I don't always succeed. I try and, really walk closer with God and see myself as a servant, for God on earth. And then surrounding myself with the right people. I'm a firm believer, get rid of the negative people in your life. Don't be shy. I've cut people out of my life who I said to them, I don't like all your negativity. You're always complaining about everybody. And then I think, well, must be doing it behind my back as well. If you don't change, then I'm not going to be associated with you. And they didn't change. So cutting them out of my life. And then also I've cut people out who I don't believe have the same values and principles as me. I don't, approve of how they behaved. And so I've cut them out. So I think it's surrounding myself with people who build me up than pull me down. When I left banking, if my wife hadn't said, if that's what you want, I'll support you, or if other people hadn't said, well, my father did say I was nuts. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? But it's really the positive people that build you up and not pull you down. Don't be shy to get rid of other people that will pull you down, because when you need them, then you can go to them and you can say, look, I'm struggling with this, or what do you think? I want to leave the bank. Do you think it's a good idea? Oh, you mad? No. Okay, well, do it. Then I think it's having balance. I do work long hours because I said I believe in hard work, but I'm able to balance it. I'm passionate about my family. I will decline so many events because now I've been working too many hours. I want to spend time with my kids, and now it's the grandkids. But when my kids were growing up, I felt very strongly that why be a parent if you're not going to spend quality time? I never really took up golf because I would have had to spend every Saturday playing golf to practice when I would rather be spending time with my kids because I was at work in the week. So I think it's balance, finding what really, when I'm stressed, when I'm really struggling, what helps me apart from God, it's exercise. I've spent a lot of time over the last years. I find if I do 20 minutes, it doesn't have to be much, 3-4 times a week, I handle my stress so much better. I'm able to cope in the day. It's quite amazing. Sometimes when I've had a really bad day, I think, oh, hell, I actually didn't even pray this morning, or I didn't read my Bible, or I didn't exercise. Damn it, tomorrow I'm exercising. So exercise for me plays a big role, and that can be any sort of exercise. I mean, even if it's 20 minutes. And then also finding, whether it's music or walking in the forest on a weekend, finding that balance. We talk about the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the EQ, the spiritual, the EQ, the IQ, the reading books and things like that. Yeah, so that's it.
So I want to now go to the second half. So there's the pre-Amy Beale Foundation and the post-Amy Beale Foundation halves of your life. So there you were, a very senior leader in a very well-known bank, being very successful, getting lots of accolades for how successful you are. And then you make a decision to leave that cushy, comfortable life. Well, maybe not that comfortable, but it was a cushy life, kind of very, very privileged life, to go and, firstly to set up the Ubuntu Foundation, and then you take on the Amy Beale Foundation at the time, that was called Amy Beale at the time, and it was bankrupt. I always say to people, there's a fine line between courage and stupidity. That feels to me that you've kind of crossed that line somehow. So, tell us a little bit about that decision, and if you look back at that decision now, how do you feel about that?
So it didn't just happen. It wasn't on my radar to take over Amy Beale Foundation at the time, but come 2005, I realized that heading up the retail bank as provincial manager, I think I was 41 or 42 at the time, I would need to go back to Johannesburg at some point. Do I really want to go back? And I took a decision that I love the Cape. I love the people. I'd love the people I'd met. I'd learned so much, from the people. And so if I don't want to go back to Joburg, realistically, you can't spend the next 15 years as provincial manager. So, hey, you need to make a move. And that was quite scary at first. I still remember sitting my family down. My youngest daughter I think she was 9. I said, Daddy's going to leave the bank at some point, not sure when, And she actually had a tear. She said, but Daddy, are we going to have to move school? Are we going to have money? How are we going to sell our house? I said, no, God has blessed me for all these years. He's going to bless me even further. And I didn't know that was going to, but he has. So I spent a year planning what on earth should I go and do? And it's too long to share now, but I share it in the book, the different events that happened. This door opened and I thought, that's God's plan for me. Definitely. Boom. It didn't happen. And then I was upset. I thought, oh my word, I really thought that was. Oh, and then something else happened. That's God's plan. Oops, it didn't. And it really was like a done deal, the first two, and they fell through. And then I thought, no, I'm going to start something myself now. And that's when I started coming up with the idea of the South African Ubuntu Foundation, because I was going to so many events where it was either all white or either all colored or very few black people. And I'd had the privilege of really getting to know the warmth of Black African people, colored, Indian, Jewish, Muslims. So I thought maybe God can use me as a catalyst to really bring people together, break down those barriers, which I've been doing with my customers, with my staff. So that's where the idea of the Ubuntu Foundation came, and it's much a longer story what got me to start it. But I started it at the end of 2006, and you can't believe it when I announced that I was moving on to start the Ubuntu Foundation, because I was now ready. I waited until I had 4 parts of my business plan. I went to see Paul Harris, who was my boss in Johannesburg, heading up the retail bank. And he started RMB actually. And I said, Paul, this is the story. And at first it was, you crazy, you nuts. And gave 3 months notice. And once I started telling people, it was, have you lost the plot? You're never going to succeed. People only wanted to know you because you were the head guy. So and I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. It's about relationships. If you have the right, genuine relationships, people will come along with you. They won't drop you because they only wanted to know you for the title. And I've proved that right. It's helped me tremendously to take Amy Beale Foundation from bankruptcy to where it is now and put Ubuntu Foundation on the map. So I was ready. It was quite interesting. The 4th part of the business plan, which evolved, I won't share that now, but hopefully they'll read in the book. And so once that happened, I started. And then 3 months later, the man who was running the Amy Beale Foundation died and they were bankrupt. What had happened was Amy's, and I'm not sure if everybody knows the story of Amy Beale, but it's a really powerful story. If you don't know, I go into detail in the book about who Amy Beale was, about the parents, the killers. But Amy, in a nutshell, was a dynamic young woman who at 26 years old came to really help South Africa. She actually helped write the Constitution. She spent a year at UWC working with Dalla Omar. We've got photos of her with Cyril Ramaphosa and you name it. And she was just, on that day in August 1993, it was still the height of apartheid. We only had the elections in 94. Chris Hani had been murdered that year. There was the St. James massacre. So there was a lot of tension in South Africa. And Amy went into the township with 2 of her black friends, and the rest of you know the story. She was killed. 4 boys went to jail for her death. And in 1997, Archbishop Tutu asked the parents to come and meet the 4 boys in the TRC. And that's when the parents said, but these are not murderers. They are young boys, 18 years old at the time, who really just lost their way. So they asked the government to give them amnesty, and they forgave them. 2 of the boys were so humbled, Louise, by this act of forgiveness that they reached out to the parents on being released from jail after 5 years and said, we now want to dedicate our life to the youth. We're so humbled you could forgive us for what we did. And that's how the foundation started in 98. Fast forward to 2002, the father died unexpectedly with no medical insurance, and he left Amy's mother penniless. And so from 2002 to after Amy's father died, she employed an ex-headmaster. And you know too well that headmasters then were not trained to run businesses or NPOs. And this poor guy was a really remarkable educator, ran headmaster of schools in the townships, started as CEO of Amy Beale Foundation. And by 2006 now, no money's come in because the father's died. There's no money. He didn't know how to raise money, how to keep, run a business, keep your costs down, diversify your income. And he died of a heart attack. And the Consul of America called me up and said, can you just meet Amy's mother? She's here to close the foundation. Can you believe it? And I said to her, but wow, you can't close something that's for the youth, for the future. You've done such amazing work. So she said, well, then you better take it over. And it's the first time in I can't recall ever not have making such a quick decision. Normally I'll go and discuss it with somebody, pray about it. And I said, right, I'll do it. But I want to keep the Ubuntu Foundation going. And I'll change the Ubuntu Foundation was going to have many beneficiaries. I'll make Amy Beale Foundation the only beneficiary of our events. And that's when I took it over. And it was tough in those first years. People were like, Kevin, what's wrong with you, man? Why are you wasting your time? Just let it close. That was what most people said, let it close. But how? With the youth, you know, we have to focus on the youth, like you have seen. So that's how it started. So we can see if there's time, if you want to share the journey of taking it from bankruptcy to where it is now. It's been a wonderful journey of using all my experiences that I've shared to turn it around.
So thank you, Kevin. And I mean, this is where I do think, you know, I want to spend a whole evening with Kevin, but we can't do that today. So we've got another 25 minutes to go. So I really want to encourage you, if you want to contribute or share or comment, please share your thoughts in the chat. There's been a few messages already. If you've got a question for
there's something wrong here. I just couldn't hear you there. Sorry.
That's fine. I was just inviting people to contribute.
Back. I don't know what's going on. There we are.
Kevin,
sorry, you disappeared for a minute.
Yeah, I think there seems to be a challenge with your internet, but
and I'm paying Telkom. I think I'm going to move from Telkom.
That's a good plan. So yeah, so just for everybody, so if you want to contribute or comment or share a thought, then please do that. So Kevin, there are many people on this call. I've looked at where people come from, and many people who are in challenging roles and who are kind of sitting with a kind of feeling of around it's not possible. So I think it would be really nice for people to hear the story about your big impossibility that you overcame. So there you were in Plain Street in that Woolworths building. I remember visiting you there, thinking you're going to be there for a long time, and suddenly the message came from Woolworths to say, so sorry, but we need this space now, out you go. And you did something miraculous in response to that message. So tell us about that.
Again, when everybody heard that I'd been given 1 month's notice, they just said, well, that's the sign. Close Amy Beale Foundation down. You're never going to find a donor who wants to pay your rent, because I had convinced Woolworths to give us free rental for all those years. So you're done, finished. And I thought, there's no ways I'm going to allow this in terms of can-do, making the impossible possible. So I started, you know, going and looking at different places, hoping I'll find a landlord who would believe in us, but it was a bad time. It was 2014. It wasn't a good time in the economy, so it just was proving impossible. And then I suddenly thought, no, hang on, think differently. You've got to be creative here. Why don't you go and find an old derelict building that you can get for next to nothing, instead of looking for rental property, or, you know, why don't you go and find an old derelict building and try and get it for next to nothing, and build your headquarters there, and then build a youth skills center, because it had been worrying me since 2006. We'd been focusing on after school programs, which I still believe very strongly in, that, you know, you've got to keep those kids in the afternoons off the street, supplement the shortcomings of the educational system in the morning, and help them not drop out of school. But once they finished school, they were all unemployed. And it worried me since about 2012. And I thought, if I can find an old derelict building, it can help me achieve my dream of the youth skills set for 18 and above. And I started looking, and then the one agent who was taking me to rental property, and he said, would you ever consider buying something? I said, yes. So he said, but then you've got to come and look today. I said, oh, no, I don't have time. He said, well, a businessman has put in an offer to buy this old derelict building and turn it into a shopping center. So I said, okay, let's go. Because I also believe in life, you know, you make certain decisions and it takes you on a trajectory. If I hadn't said yes that day, my life would have been different. When I walked around there, I could just see where I could build a teaching kitchen and classrooms, and where we could build our offices. So I said, please tell the seller, does he want to make a businessman rich or does he want to help the kids? And he said, no, you can't say such a thing. I said, well, please. And anyway, long story short, he came back and said, okay, if you can pay 2.6 million rand, I won't sign the other offer. And then everyone said, no, now you're crazy. 2.6 million to buy it. And then you've got to spend time fixing it up. You've got to knock this whole building down. And we just went on a mission. I just said, well, we're going to find a way. And I just started talking to people. It's again, this whole thing, surrounding yourself with the right people, just getting out there, talking to people. And I managed to raise the money. And it's much more interesting than that. Certain things happen where somebody would give me money. I share some of those examples. But we eventually raised the 8.6 million. It cost me in the end 6 million to build because I went big. I just believe, you know, what's that saying? Reach for the stars. At least if you miss, you'll hit the moon. And I just went out there and I said, let's make this a huge 8 classrooms, student accommodation. That's where the 6 million came from, and then 2.6 to buy it. And we paid it off in just over a year, 15 months. And today, you know, I say to all those people who said, you're crazy, you're nuts, you're never going to do it. Just come and look what we've achieved here by saying nothing is impossible. We started the first youth skills program in 2016. And since then, we've placed just over 1,000 learners who are unemployed in employment and their own businesses. We started 36 new businesses, and it's just because we said, let's just get out there and do it. I then, with the same philosophy of surrounding yourself with the right people, I had to go to new donors because I couldn't go to donors who were funding the after school program or paying for the food or the transport. I had to find new donors for this building, you see. So it just, because I'd kept relationships, people had seen I was genuine. They could also see that we were transparent. One of the things we said with Amy Beale Foundation was we want to show people where the money's spent. It goes on the kids. You know, when I first started approaching people, they said, well, go and ask the Beals or go and ask America. No, this is a South African organization. So it was just about being transparent, how the money's spent, and making sure there's impact and outcomes. And yeah, so today I'm very proud that we've got these 8 classrooms, you know, over 1,000 students. We just placed 20 last week at the Foschini group. You know, if I look at these learners, that's what makes me so happy, that if I'd listened to others and just said, oh, okay, it's not possible, we wouldn't have achieved all these learners being employed, starting their own businesses. And I mean, I'm blessed when I see these learners say, you know, if it wasn't for Amy Beale or Amy Foundation, we would have been into drugs or we would have been in the gangs, we'd be killed. They've given us hope. So I just encourage everyone never to listen to someone who says, you can't do this, that's impossible. Of course you can do it. Just find the right way.
Thank you, Kevin. And it's wonderful to hear those stories. I'm so excited to visit you soon to come and find out what you're doing.
I'm looking. Did I get cut off? Was I cut off at any time? I'm worried about it.
That was fun. It was all good. We'll let you know when it's cut off. So again, I want to now open this up, Kevin, and hear a few other voices. So I'm now going to ask anybody on this call who want to just let their voice be heard. All you need to do is unmute yourself, and maybe you want to ask Kevin a question or you want to comment on something that Kevin has said. I really want to encourage you to do that. So otherwise it's a very one way, and neither Kevin or I enjoy one-way conversations. We'd love to have some some participation from someone on the call, but I see no one's opened their mics yet.
Even if you disagree with what I'm saying, or, you know, don't be shy. Just say, Kevin, no, I can't believe that, you know, or whatever you want to say.
Whatever. There you go, Linda. Thank you,
yes,
Linda.
Yes, I'm so inspired by listening to you, Kevin. Thank you so much. I'm the fundraiser for a charity in KZN. We work in early childhood education. And yeah, I'm just so inspired. I have all the same beliefs as you. I'm a strong Christian, and I just thank you for the reminder of us getting back to our basics. So exercise and surrounding yourself with people and relationships It's all fundamentals that we need to have as individuals to be able to survive in this world, and particularly in the non-profit organization arena. So I thank you for that reminder, because we've got so caught up and lost in our emotions with regards to what's going on around us, that we lose sight of what we really just need to do, and that's get to the basics, and we'll be successful with that. So thank you for that reminder. And I also put in the comments there that we have worked in a creche in Pietermaritzburg in the Woodlands area that was founded by the Amy Beale Foundation. So it's a lovely, lovely circle, because early childhood education, you have to have right to be able to build the right foundations to be able to build on with schooling. So it's wonderful to hear you placing children into positions now, but we work right on the other scale. We work on the little ones. So thank you for inspiring us today.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so happy to hear that, and well done to you, because it's not easy. Early childhood education is so critical. It was so neglected for so long. I always say I'll pay more taxes if we look after the teachers, you know. Well, I talk nurses and policemen as well, but what you're doing with early childhood education is so important. So well done, and never give up. Know that you're doing a great job there. And my home province.
Oh yeah, and you know, the never give up. You know, I chair the NGO forum at the Pietermaritzburg Chamber of Business, and I always say to the people that come to our forum meeting, you know, we can't give up, because we have beneficiaries that we are responsible for, like you. There are beneficiaries that rely on us. So we have to find the funding. We can't give up. We must do it. And by the way, Singer Quenza's statement is, we can do it. So it works perfectly with your book. And I'm certainly going to get a copy and have a read. Thank you so much.
You'll make me so happy, Linda.
Yeah.
Louise, maybe I can just share with, you know, when I spent 7 years writing the book, and then when it was ready to publish, we were ready in 2018, and then my world came crashing down end of 2018. Chapter 21, I think I'll never forget. And it really was the most traumatic time of my life. And so I stalled publishing, and I only published in February 2020. And so the publisher said, well, how many do you want to print? So I said, well, I want everybody in the world to read this. So I said, I want 10,000. He said, are you crazy? The norm is 1,000 maximum. And then guess what? They arrived, and a week later lockdown came, so they sat in the bookshop. So I'll be very happy if you spread the word and get the book out there. Thank you, Linda, and everybody.
I actually want to get a copy to read for myself, and I'm going to give it to my 22-year-old son, who's embarking on finishing studying and getting into the work environment, and he needs to know that it's all about this emotional IQ. It's not even necessary about your degrees, and that gets you in the door, but to get further in life, it's all about your emotional IQ and how you reap into other people's lives. So it's a wonderful reminder. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Louise can share my email address. I'd love, when you've read it, you know, contact me and tell me what you think. I like to hear where it's been to help people, you know.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Thank you, Linda. That was such a generous response to Kevin. And we want to hear maybe from one other person. Kevin Gaynor has just unmuted himself. So Kevin, we'd love to hear from you too.
Hi, everyone. Kevin, yeah, thank you. That's just an amazing story. I love it. I'm definitely going to get the book, but what's next? What's the next few steps in the in the pipeline?
Well, you know, people have said, well, aren't you going to retire? You're 58 now. And I'm saying, well, Raymond Ackerman is just turned 90 last year, and he's still out there. So I just think I want God to continue using me to make a difference wherever that might be. So I don't think I'll step away from Amy Foundation. You'll see in the book the reason we changed it from Amy Beale to Amy Foundation. We won't go into all that now, but it's now called Amy Foundation.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think I'm looking for my successor over time, somebody who can come in, but then I won't step away. I will still, you know, be the face, fundraising, building the relationships, because, you know, if you just walk away, then people not sure where to put their money, because there's so many nonprofits in this country, You know, there's a thing called donor fatigue, as you know. So one has to just make sure that you retain those donors. And I'll keep I want to grow Ubuntu Foundation now. We've just launched last year the Ubuntu Pledge, where we want people to sign up to live their life by 13 values that we've created. So I'm going to encourage you all, maybe Louise, we can send out the link to the pledge. All it is you click on it and you say, I pledge to live my life by the following 13 values, you know, respecting, looking after the planet. And also it's really, I really want to drive that. And I want to just help people get back to basics. I want to be able to do more speaking. I want to, you know, travel the world. I love travel. I want to go out. I love it when I can be have people in an audience, and the best thing is when the waiter will come up to me and say, wow, I learned so much. Thank you. Then I'm happy. I just want to be able to, you know, like Linda's son, maybe Linda's son reads the book, and if he can take one thing away, if everybody can take one thing away and just benefit from it, then that's what I want to achieve. I want on my tombstone to say he was a good father, a good husband, and he changed lives, you know, something like that. He made a difference in other people's lives. My wife always laughs at me. She says, you know, look at your father. When we go somewhere, he's hugging all the ladies. I say, well, you know, most of them are widows. Giving them a nice hug made them feel good, and I gave them some warmth, you know. So I just want God to use me more. I will be on some boards. I like being on boards of businesses and corporates and NPOs to just help them use my experience. I want to mentor people. So yeah, it's going to be another journey as I 2 years time hit 60. I also want to train myself to be a game guide. I love being in nature. Maybe I'll go on a course to be in the bush.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Where are you from, Kevin?
I'm in Cape Town, so in Bergfleet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll meet you at one of our events. Or
I looked if you, yeah, I'd love to touch base and connect. Talking your game story, I think Eco, you've probably heard of it. It's in the latest Getaway magazine. There's a whole thing for a year, but you can do a 3-month game guide or game conservation course, which is apparently really fantastic. Yeah. Okay,
I'll go and get the latest Getaway.
Eco something, yeah.
Maybe you join me, Kevin.
100%, I'm there.
Thank you, Kevin. Good.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so we've come to the end of our conversation. Those of you who know Symphony events know that we do want to spend our time appreciating. So and we want to end with appreciation. So there's lots of, a few messages of appreciation already from people. And thank you, Linda and Kevin, for your contribution. And so while people are thinking about anything else they want to say in terms of contribution, appreciation, Kevin, I'm going to ask you. Recently, I did an interview with Julie Maranzella, and at the end of the interview, she said, "Louise, you need to leave us with Patkos." So I'm going to ask you now, if you had to leave us with Patkos, and then just want to hear anybody else want to add something. You can just unmute yourself, and after Kevin's spoken, we'll hear. We'll give you an opportunity to say something. And John, Peter, if you want to unmute and say what you've sent me privately, I would love to hear that. But yes, Kevin, Patkos.
And I'm going to give you that Patkos now. I just wish I had time. Will we be able to copy some of these messages here so I can?
We will send it. Tasnim will make a copy of the messages, and she'll send it to you. And then if you want to respond to any
because there's some lovely ones there, like Gillian Fillion at UNISA in Pretoria. I'd love to connect with her about leadership, and she talks about that. You know, maybe. As I said, I do enjoy speaking to groups and that. I see there's Murray at Chevra Kadisha. I'd love to learn more about Chevra Kadisha. I see you look after 11,000 people annually. Wow, well done. That's amazing. If I can help in any way, you know, I always say I can't promise. I don't like to promise things, but hey, where I can help, I'm always willing to. And there's others there, Josephine.
Well, Chevra Kadisha might be a place for some of your students who come out of your center, so it might be a good idea for you to connect. So, yeah. But, so Patkos.
So the Patkos, I think the word watch, let me end off with that. WATCH. And I go into a lot more detail about each one, but I'll just give you a bit of the word watch. Watch the words that come out of your mouth, our mouth, my mouth, your mouth. You know, words can break a person down or they can build a person up. Oh, Kevin, you've really put on weight. Ah, oh, damn it. Now you make me feel so horrible. Hey, Kevin, you're looking good. Hey, now I'm already feeling, or, you know, people are too critical of others. So watch the words that come out of your mouth. Make sure they build somebody up. I think I spoke enough about attitude. Watch your attitude. Have a positive attitude. You know, when you walk into the room, do people want to come and talk to you, or do they quickly duck? T, watch your thoughts. Have thoughts that lead to action. So many people say, oh, I had that idea. Well, sorry, you didn't act on it. So, but have thoughts that lead to action. Have positive thoughts as well. C, if we were in an audience, I'd say, right, quick shout out. C, what C? C is watch the company you keep. We've spoken enough about that, but watch the company you keep. Surround yourself with the right people. A lot of people, when I ask what's the C, they say, watch your communication. You can. So you can adapt these. You can add other things, but these are the ones that have driven me to be significant as opposed to successful. And then H, what is H? Watch your heart. And that's not about just giving money. Watch your heart is about caring about other people. You know, Ubuntu says we must be fair. Now, when we practice Ubuntu in the workplace, we have to be tough. I've had to dismiss numerous people in my life. I've had to discipline people. I've had to call people in, but I do it in a fair and respectful way. So watch your heart. Have a heart that cares about others, that's fair, that's compassionate, that's kind. So that's the word watch. I always say, never forget the word watch. If you get everything I've said today, just keep this word watch next to you, WATCH, and that I think will be my putt course.
Yeah, Kevin, and I must say, when I read the book, that really jumped out at me as well. So I remember reading it, and I want to say to everybody, this book is full of little nuggets and tools and ideas and words of wisdom. So it's definitely worth reading and definitely worth sharing with other people. You'll get lots from, you know, people that we all know, Archbishop Tutu and Yvonne Shaka Shaka and other wonderful people. So delighted that you have all been with us. Kevin, there's a question around, can people visit the Amy Foundation? I just want to say to you that one of my most memorable experiences in Cape Town ever was a visit with the Amy Foundation. They took us to some of the after-school centers that they were working in. I think this must have been 2012, Kevin, so it was a long time ago, but it may have been a little later than that, but it was a long time ago, and it was a life-changing experience. So I'm hoping that the answer to that question around can one visit?
Oops. So Louise, can you hear me? Right. So please do. Maybe you can, everybody that here, you share my email address with people, and they must email me and we'll set up a visit. I'd love to welcome you, just so you can be inspired by the youth there and what we're doing, and if I can help in any way. So yes, please do email me and visit.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will send you Kevin's contact details as part of the thank you email. Tasneem, if you could just make a note of that. Kevin is also going to send us the link to the pledge so that we can all pledge to live our lives according to these values. We will send you, we have recorded the session, so we'll send you a link to the recording. And I really want to, Kevin also does township tours. They facilitate all sorts of interactions and visits. And I'm sure that once COVID has taken leave from our shores, or once we figured out how to live with COVID, we'll have another Ubuntu festival. There'll more Ubuntu breakfasts. If anybody interested to get onto Kevin's mailing list, I'm on his WhatsApp mailing list. I get a regular reminder of amazing speakers that he has, you know, really inspiring speakers. So become part of Kevin Chaplin's network of amazing people, and let us know if you want to know more, and then we'll make sure that we make all the right connections. So,
Thank
but
you so much,
Stephen,
Louise.
is it okay? Can we include in the email, in the message we send? Can we both include both your mobile number and your email address? Is that okay?
Please do. I don't always answer the phone because I'll be in meetings, but WhatsApp is the easiest. Then you just send me a WhatsApp and then we can start from there, because you also get so many calls trying to sell you stuff. So if it's a private number, I don't always take it. But I'd love to hear from people on WhatsApp, and then we can always have a chat, and my email. And I want to encourage you. I mean, the book is in all the bookstores. It's in Exclusive Books, Bargain Books, Come Books, loot.co.za. But I'm always encouraging people to rather go to Come Books, because they take the least amount of commission. Exclusive Books take, between Exclusive Books and the distributor, they take 75% of the selling price. It's a ripoff. But Come Books only take 30%. So I encourage you to try and get it at Come Books. But if there's no Come Books, then Exclusive Books or Bargain Books or Loot are also quite reasonably priced as well. And it's cheaper in Loot and Come Books than Exclusive Books. So I just want to share that.
Okay.
So help me get those sales up to show my publisher that we can do it.
Absolutely.
But more importantly,
absolutely.
I just want more and more people to read it. So, your children, your staff, let's get it out there and let's help others to learn from me.
Fantastic.
Thank you
very much,
Louise, for what you're doing.
Kevin.
I want to thank Louise for what she's doing. She's been a remarkable inspiration. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you very much. So mutual appreciation from everybody, all the nice messages from everybody. So thank you very much for sharing your this hour with us, and we look forward to seeing you at future sessions that we're hosting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Great. I look forward to meeting all of you over email or WhatsApp or in person one day, and thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.